So anywho, the great thing about this stuff is that even though we made some really crappy examples, we wanted to see how it dried and then see how you can manipulate when it's dry. And one of the pleasing things is that it's very lightweight when it's dry. It's very hard when it's dry. It is carvable in a very nice way when it's dry. You can carve it into shapes, so you can make a rough shape and then refine it really, really delicately and with a lot of detail with an X-Acto knife or anything else. It is also sandable and fileable, and of course it's paintable. You know what I mean? So the sky's the limit. I made a bead because I just had no creativity at the moment, and I made a hole in the bead, and so there it is. So, but then we tried to add some texture, because one of the things about the paper clay was supposedly that it would take some very detailed texture, and with our first kind of crude example, we found that to be true. So if you have a good texture that you want to put in it, like a leaf, or we just use some round magic marker to shape it, you can do whatever. So you can come up with a rough shape and then really refine it nicely and change it and carve into it and all kinds of stuff with it when you get ready.
Is it breakable easily?
I don't know, you want me to try to break this?
Yeah, break it.
Yeah, break.
Drop it. Oh,
Break,
yes.
yeah,
It's
so
easily breakable.
The thing that this paper clay is, the reason it was invented is to be like the coating on paper mache.
Oh.
So if, like I told Burr, she found this idea in one of these jewelry making magazines, and they had made a paper clay bracelet, and I'm thinking, like a bangle, and I'm thinking if you made an armature out of masking tape and newspaper or whatever, that then coating it nice and thickly with this paper clay and then carving and sanding and whatever is a really interesting way to think about working.
Do you think that coating it with some kind of a thing would make it less breaky?
Yes, I do. I think that if you shellacked it or varnished it or what have you, to make it shiny, and it's also pretty porous. If you want to pass it around, you can see that it's pretty porous, so that if you didn't coat it with something, it would probably get dirty really easily. You know, it would absorb stains, it would absorb dirt. This paper clay, the paper of the paper clay is toilet paper. And the recipe is on the agenda that we have, so you can have the recipe. It's kind of fun. The best way to do it is by weight, is to measure by weight, okay? So the first thing you do is you need 24 grams of toilet paper. So I went next door to the bathroom and grabbed like toilet paper. So you turn on the scale and you want to make sure that you're on grams. So I'm on grams and I weigh my toilet paper. You want 24, so you got to kind of get it so it sits on the scale so you can see what you got. I got 25, so I'm going to take a little bit off until I get 24. So when you get 24 grams of toilet paper, right, you stick it in water and break it all up and let it soak for a pretty long time till it gets real gooey. So you start with 24 grams of dry toilet paper by weight, and then you get it in this water and you goo it up and get it all, you know, broken up best you can. Let it soak. I would let it soak for about an hour for this paper part. So you want to chunk up the paper fibers quite a bit, loud. So you chunk it all up, right? And this isn't the only time that the paper gets beaten up, because it gets beaten up again when you mix it with the other stuff. So you don't have to do a perfect job. Compound, which is the stuff you get at the hardware store for drywall stuff. It's pretty cool and non-toxic. So, and then Elmer's glue, or any kind of cheap, you know, school glue-ish stuff. Cornstarch, baby oil, and regular old flour. That's all you need, right? So it's kind of like a fun, non-toxic project. So once you get your paper all ground up with the immersion blender, you want to get the water out. You want to get as much water out as you need to make this mass of papery glop weigh 110 grams on the scale. So
From 24 to 100.
right, so you're actually adding quite a bit of water weight to this thing, and it requires that you squeeze out quite a bit of water. So this is good. So yeah, So you start squeezing, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. And it ends up, once you get it, if you make a lot of this, I imagine, this is only my third batch, you get a feel for how much water you have to take out. And so the neat thing about it is that you can squeeze out a bunch of water. If you squeeze out too much water, you can put more water back in. And unit it to gram, and then stick it in. 52, so I have to squeeze out more water.
How much was it, did you say?
151 is what it was. It needs to be 110.
Oh, okay.
One, two. So what I do then is add a little more water, just a little bit, until I get up to 110. So I put more water in there. 4. Come on, baby. 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. So now I have a ball of wet paper that weighs
110.
right, which is roll. So it's cool like
Is
that.
that the tear part that you're talking
No, Tare. Tear.
Zero it out.
Zero out the scale.
about? Oh, I
Yeah. So there's that, right? So then the rest of it, and it's all on the doohickey, what's this called? The agenda or whatever, the recipe, so you all have it. This makes cleanup easy. Okay, so I'm gonna measure these other gooey, gross ingredients, but I'm gonna do it, actually I don't like that, I like this. I'm gonna do it like this, so that I don't have to clean anything out. So 2 batches, I'm easily making 3 batches, right? So just till I get to 200, that's 120.
It's like cooking.
Yeah, it is. 193. Oh. Get some out.
Exactly like
200. Okay, so that's 200 grams of that. Just whop it in. And throw this away. And then the next thing you need is the glue, which you need, it says a half a cup and everything's a different mass, a different weight, so it's best to go with the weight, I think, it's more accurate. So here I am, zeroed out, and so half a cup of Elmer's glue is actually 130 grams. So into my thing here goes 85, 92, getting there. If I was Martha Stewart, I'd have this all measured out already, so you wouldn't have to watch me. 30, oh, stop, 31, 32, so I gotta get some out. See what I'm saying? And take it out, let it go, and use your fingers to sort of toothpaste tube it right out of the bag. Boom. Yay.
Probably lose gram.
What that is, but with cornstarch, just as easy. Kind of start, oops, dumping it in. And then I can just use this again for the, for the flour. Turn it off, turn it on.
It's funny that you're gonna measure it out because we're just gonna have to add so much more.
Don't you start with me. Lord Almighty.
How would you do it?
That's what I do when I cook. I don't cook like this. And then 3 tablespoons of baby oil.
How many grams is that?
It doesn't say. That's why I'm inexact about this, because this is not a tablespoon, and
It's a teaspoon.
I overdo it because it's less than. So see how I slop it? See how free I am with that?
Yeah, you're
Oh,
super-
wow. Oh, here's another. the super fun part is mixing it together, right? And so the super fun part with our new art club mixer that Liliana got is, so you want to mix it up, and this is going to be loud, so I'm not going to talk while I do it, but you want to mix it up for a long time, because remember there's those paper fibers in there. And so what I found from the first batch to the second batch was that I didn't mix this long enough in the first batch, and that it's important to follow those directions and do it for 3 minutes or so, not just till it looks good, but like 3 minutes, because you're breaking up those paper fibers more. Right? Does that make sense? You're gonna measure your time? Yeah. Yeah, so that's good right there. Now the next step is this.
For paper,
I'm gonna do
toilet
this,
paper,
watch.
and joint compound.
It's a little bit wet whenever it first gets finished like this. And so Burr and I discovered earlier today that you need a bunch of flour into it. So remove all your rings.
Which is why it's so important to measure out your flour before you put it in.
I'm not going to say anything because I'm on tape.
Not tape, Julie.
Oh, not tape. That's old fashioned. Oh my God. What am I on? I'm on digital media. So you just get about as much of it out as you can.
Can I
And
watch that?
it smells awesome because it's got a bunch of baby oil in it. And joint compound, which kind of smells good. So it's very sticky at first when you first make it. And so what you want to do is knead it a lot and you end up, like Burr and I found, probably kneading in another, I don't know, at least cup and a half of flour into
I
it.
think I needed in maybe.
Feel that. Feel it.
Nice and soft.
It's not sticky. We won't get your hands icky.
It feels so good.
Yeah. And so then you can actually see that it'll hold a lot of detail, and it still has a little bit of a stickiness to it. You still don't want to get all this stuff in. You can still want to maybe have some flour on your hands and some and on your work surface. But one of the things that you can do that I found was pretty cool was to work it like this, if you feel like it. However you want to play with it, it's fine. And then we'll just leave everything to dry and, revisit it another time with tools. But there's enough for everybody to take a bunch of little pieces. But this works out pretty cool. If you go here like this, put it in there like that, if you want something thin, that you could cut shapes out.
Oh yeah, get it.
And yeah, you can do this. And you can get it nice and thin, right? And then you can take this apart, and you can actually cut shapes in it. I have some round things that you could use like a cookie cutter, and then you could put texture in it if you want to, knowing that you can refine the edges with carving or anything. You can cut it out with an X-Acto, you can make little beads, you can make little figures, you can make whatever you want, knowing that once it's dry, you can refine whatever shape you've made with the file, with the sandpaper, with the X-Acto knife, carving it, etc., etc. So have fun, play with it, do whatever you want, take pieces of it.